maybe he was like, well, is this what God's saying? Maybe I should wait for, something clear. Oh, Lord, give me a sign, Like sometimes I think we're just stuck in that analysis paralysis.
Sure.
Hey everybody, and welcome to Epic Everyday, our weekday podcast for busy, stressed out Christians who don't want to just survive and instead want to thrive. Because that's what we all want.
Yes.
I'm Liz Ferks, and this is my husband, Evan.
Hi there. Good morning.
And we're so glad you guys are here with us today.
Yeah. Happy Tuesday. We're going to continue our discussion about responsibility this week and the CSCs. And today we're going to talk about surrender.
So I think this is a huge area of stress. Because if we're not surrendering to the Lord, especially in the area of responsibility, we are going to, by definition, be stressed out. We talked yesterday about how responsibility is respect for yourself and respect for others. And that translates into action, into doing the things we're supposed to be doing. And I think, we kind of get stuck on this spectrum where either we do too much, we're taking responsibility for things that aren't our responsibility. And so we're like in sprint mode 24/7, we're just going from one thing to the next and the next and the next because our to-do list has to be done. We're trying to fix other people's lives. We're stuck, doing all this stuff that's not really our job. And we feel the stress of that. I know when I start feeling like I need to fix somebody else's life, I think about it all the time and I'm trying to run scenarios. What would help them? What can I do? Instead of being able to say what they really need is a heart change. Mm-hmm. And that's beyond my capacity to do.
Yeah, that's tricky, especially, when we try to think about ways to help people. Because I think that is our natural tendency. And then especially as Christians, I'm like, oh, there's a problem and maybe I could help. And it just gets overwhelming real quick if we're trying to get in there and take control of the situation.
Right. And then on the other end of the spectrum is I'm just passive. I'm not, sometimes I think we forget that surrender means moving forward. It doesn't mean just sitting back and waiting for God to act. Like the sermon illustration with the guy that is in a flood and is, as the water is going up and he's on the roof of his house and then, a boat comes by and he's like, no, God's going to take care of me. I don't need your boat. And then a helicopter comes by and he's like, no, I'm good. God's taking care of me. And then he dies. And then he's like, Lord, you didn't take care of me. And he's like, I sent a boat, I sent a helicopter. If it's a long sermon illustration, they give you a few other things that he sends, he sends a little boat and then a bigger boat and then a giant boat, whatever.
Yeah.
So the point is, though, that sometimes I think we get stuck in that waiting syndrome where we're not actually doing the action part of responsibility.
Yeah.
We've sat back and we're not taking responsibility. So we're under responsible rather than over responsible.
Right. I think it's easy to get in that mindset. When we think of surrender, we think of, like you said, not doing anything. I think but that takes some of the pressure off too. Like that illustration is such a good one where surrender and action do go hand in hand. And it's not an action that I make up and I come up with all my brilliance. It's an action that just is me saying yes to God's leading and to God's solution. Get in the boat. How hard is it, right? But we're so caught up in, that guy obviously had some idea of, maybe he expected an angel, and that's the only way God was going to help him.
Right.
Whereas just a normal old guy in a boat,
Not miraculous.
So we need to let God do what He's going to do and say yes to it and go join up with that.
Yeah, we need to keep that open hand where we're like, okay, Lord, I'm surrendering to what you want to do and what your plan looks like. And maybe it doesn't look quite like my plan, but I'm still going to act. I'm not going to just sit back and watch the world and wait for, I think sometimes we get stuck in, I'm going to wait for things to change. Like if I just wait, the situation will magically get better by itself, and then it'll be easier. I know I get stuck in that. Like, if I just stay in bed a little bit longer, the day will seem easier to face. If I just wait a little bit, the kids will be less cranky, you know.
And that's still you or us, you know, being like, this is what the situation's really supposed to be like.
Right.
And focusing on that. Yeah, it's tough. You know, it's tricky to be in the middle here where, you know, not overly zealous and, you know, controlling everybody responsibility and not doing nothing.
Right. When I think sometimes the doing nothing thing doesn't come from like, I'm lazy or I just don't want to do anything, I'm tired. But I think sometimes it's fear of making the wrong choice.
Oh, yeah.
You know, like that guy with his boat, maybe he was like, well, is this what God's saying? Maybe I should wait for, you know, something clear. Oh, Lord, give me a sign, you know? Like sometimes I think we're just stuck in that analysis paralysis.
Sure.
Where we can't figure out what's right.
Yeah, and I think this is why it's tricky, is because we have a fair amount, a lot actually, probably more than we want to give ourselves credit for, of agency ourselves to make decisions and to do things. I mean, we're created in the image of God. We just been talking about that a lot lately, but we have a certain amount of power in the world and we can use it. And sometimes we see, like when we make mistakes, we're using our power, we make a mistake and it's these consequences that we don't ever have to face again.
Right.
And that gets us stuck. But yeah, I don't know. It's tricky. I was thinking about that today. I mean, we're recording this last Saturday. It's funny saying last Saturday, even though it's still
today.
Saturday. But, you know, this day hasn't really gone the way I thought it would go. And it's hard to be like, in each moment, be like, well, what's the thing that God is putting in front of me that I can just say yes to and do that? Because it's obviously not this whole list of stuff I thought that I was going to be accomplishing. You know, it's just different things come up, and that's fine. But it's hard.
Yeah, the thing I was thinking about was our car, because the engine died on it, and so we need to either replace the engine or buy another car. And there's a part of me that's just stuck in that, like, what if we make the wrong choice?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, the bigger, you know, spending a chunk of money like that is like, wow, I don't want to make the wrong choice. But yeah, then I think we're both kind of, like, we could have decided a couple of days ago, like, let's just do whatever. But we haven't, and it's... Yeah, I feel that too. It's like, well, and I think at some point, you know, maybe if there's not, you know, if God's not sending a boat or, you know, a guy over to our house with a new car to buy, that's the right price, that maybe it doesn't matter which one we pick. And, you know, God's like, use your agency and there's grace there for whatever. Like our pastor has this great illustration about, you know, if your boat's not moving and you're turning the rudder, you're not going to go anywhere. But so like doing something, you know, is okay sometimes, even if you're not sure if it's the right choice.
Right.
Because it's better than doing nothing. But, you know, but then you tell that to somebody who's hyperactive and a workaholic, and they're going to like, well, I'm just going to do something all the time, and they never slow down. You know, so it's like different advice for different tendencies of people.
Yeah.
And within each person, we can have those different tendencies too. Like when we're talking about spending money, you're like, put the brakes on. I don't want to spend any money. And but when it's, you know, something else, it's like, let's go, let's do it, you know, and that's fine.
Yeah. We totally have that internal spectrum, all of us, the under control, over control.
It probably just depends on where our fears are and what our experiences are and stuff. Like, you know, like I said, if we've made a mistake because we used our agency, it's like, oh, I don't want to do that again.
Right.
I don't want to have responsibility.
Yeah, that is really interesting. One of our daughters and I had this conversation about how if somebody gave her a ton of power, whether it was like, you know, she became president or she got a ton of money or something, she would just want to give it away.
Yeah.
Because she was, and it was making me laugh because they totally have not been exposed to Spider-Man yet. Even though I'm like, I can't believe we haven't done this yet. But anyway, she was saying with great power comes great responsibility, and she just doesn't want the responsibility.
A little bit of worry there that she wouldn't handle it well. Did she
Just
say?
it's just so much work.
Oh.
She was like, that would be so much work. I would never have time to do anything that I care about.
Well, I think that's one of the reasons I love superhero movies. I mean, they're so spectacular, but that's kind of what I was saying. We already have a lot of that power, right? I mean, and maybe that's what we kind of realize. Like, one person can change the world. One person can really do a lot. And we talked about that during Community Week, last week when we were talking about one person being a part of the group. And so some people take that and they're like, yeah, cool, I'm going to use this power. And they can do destructive or great things. It's like Ollivander talking about Voldemort.
I was thinking about that.
He says great things, terrible but great or something.
Yes. I think we can expect great things from you, Mr.
And then you've got
Potter.
someone like Harry who's just as powerful as Voldemort, but he's doubting himself and he doesn't even know how his power works and stuff. And that's fun to see that unfold. But what?
I think we're going to try to talk about Harry Potter every week from now on.
I do, yeah. It's one of our favorite books. I don't know. Yeah.
Yes.
Sometimes I'm like, is it too much? But
There's never too much Harry Potter. No such thing.
send us a tweet. Let us know if you've had it up to here with Harry Potter illustrations.
Anyway, on that spectrum, I think what we have to do is find the middle ground.
Oh.
In Tai Chi, Tai Chi walking is when you put all of your weight in one foot and your other foot is empty, and you then are free to move it anywhere. You can pick it up, put it back down, pick it up, put it back down without falling into it. And most often, we don't do that. We actually use gravity to fall from leg to leg to leg.
Sure.
It's a controlled fall over and over again. And I think that's what the middle ground looks like, where we trust God with one step, leave the other step open so we can, move it wherever we need to move, and pray for God to close the doors,
Sure.
if this isn't the right step. But then test it. And that's what you do in Tai Chi. You put your foot down, you test the surface. Is it slippery? Are you going to fall if you put your weight in that foot? Do you need to move it?
Yeah.
But it's constant motion, but it's not a frantic falling from one thing to the next to the next. It's
it's deliberate.
Yeah. Right. I'm in this foot, but I'm relaxed so I can move this foot forward. Oh, that's not the right place to move it. Now I'm shifting a little bit.
Right. And I think in our faith, it looks like stopping sometimes. I would imagine, like we said, there's two sides and two approaches sometimes. But I think, we're talking about busy, overwhelmed Christians all the time. I think in general, stopping and waiting a little bit and praying is that kind of getting in touch with that deliberateness and not just charging ahead. And then some
Right.
people are going to need the opposite advice of you should really just do something,
Right.
But yeah, that 2-leg example is great. The one leg is centered and grounded and connected with God and secure. And then the other leg is actually doing something, finding the next foothold to take.
Right. And it's calm. It's not in frantic mode.
Yeah. And it's surrendered to the laws of gravity and it's all the CSCs. I love trying to Tai Chi walk. I'm not very good at it, but it's an interesting exercise.
Yeah. I love having the spiritual principles played out in such a physical, tangible way. Hopefully you guys can see yourself on that spectrum, whether you're being over-responsible or under-responsible, or you are in the middle ground, which is awesome. If you're there, way to go. We love you, and we are praying for you guys. Thanks to everybody that's been listening and sharing the show. We really appreciate it. If you have found this podcast helpful, please do continue to share it, because the more people that are living in the CSCs, the better it is for you and for me and for everybody in the body of Christ.
Yeah, and if you're not comfortable sharing it on social media for whatever reason, or that's not just something you do, you just talk to a friend at church about it. Say you've been listening to this really interesting thing. We want to impact the body of Christ, and we feel called to this, so we're trying to get it out there.
Have an awesome Tuesday, you guys. Try to stay surrendered.
Yeah, see ya.